Alright, let's start looking at some AutoCAD commands. Over in the far left hand corner up the top we have line command, and note the line command just starts out down here at the bottom on the command line and asks for the first point. Now you can click just any spot out in space, that's fine, but personally I like to start at 0, 0. That's the x and y coordinates, x0, y0. It's good to start where that origin is, and note I'm moving that origin around. I'm panning is what that's called, and I'm using the middle mouse button or the wheel, and I simply hold it down and move the mouse left, right, up or down while holding that wheel down. So that way I can orient that so I can see it. You can also push the wheel away from you or pull it towards you to change the zoom factor. So we'll see that as we go along. Now if I want to strictly straight to the right line, I just type in some coordinate values. How far do I want it to move in the x? Let's say I want it to move 10 units in the x. Then comma separates the x and the y, and I want a 0 for the height, so it's going to go straight to the right 10 units. So it's how far am I changing in the x and how far am I changing in the y relative to the origin. Those are called absolute coordinates. Okay, so then I'm going to, let's say I want to go straight up 10 units. Well, if I'm using absolute coordinates, I would have to type in 10 for the x, 10 for the y. And that allows me to see that I'm working on this perfect square. Well, if I want to go 10 units to the left, I'll have to go minus 10 on the x, comma 10 on the y. Whoops, I'm sorry, not minus 10. I'm thinking something totally different. Okay, so now I'll just type in, or I'll hit the U for undo. And I really want to go to 0, didn't I, in the x, comma 10 on the y. Okay, and then of course you could just hit C for close, and that would take you back to 0, 0. Alright, so that's absolute rectangular coordinates. And what I've done now is, note, if I click my mouse, no command is in force right now. Click my mouse and go to the left. Note I get a green box with a dashed line around it. Anything that is in or crossing that box will get selected, and you can see the three objects that are going to get selected. And then of course I could go down here and pick this piece right here. I'll hit escape. I don't want to pick those like that. If I wanted to get all 4 of them, what I would tend to do is come over here to the left, click my mouse, move over to the right, and make sure I get everything completely in the window. And anything that is completely in the window, when you're clicking and moving to the right, and notice I've got a box that's blue and it's got a solid outline around it instead of a dashed outline, the object has to be completely in that box before it'll pick it. So note, it only picked that one line instead of all 3. Now if I go down, it gets all 4 of them, and the blue dots then are called grips, and you can actually play with those and make them do the different things. We'll talk more about that later. I just want to hit the delete key on my keyboard and they'll all go away. So that's an easy way to pick and choose things using that box. Well, let's say I want to do that same box and I want to use something called incremental coordinates. Still rectangular, so I'll go 0, 0 again. But then I know I want to go 10 units to the right, and that's all. And I don't have to do it in this particular example, but if I say at 10, 0, and the at symbol is shift and a 2 on your keyboard, then it's going to move 10 units to the right, no units up, relative to that point. So now relative to this point, if I say at 0 in the x, 10 in the y, it's going to go up and do the same thing it did before, but I had to type in the X value and the Y value before. Now I have to, and I'm still typing it in, but I'm typing in just the units that I want to go straight up. So if I want to go straight back this way now, relative to that point, and that's the @ symbol, minus 10, comma, 0. Remember, minus 10 before took me way over here because that was minus 10 relative to this coordinate here. Well, now it's relative to this coordinate. And then, of course, you would hit C for close. So that's absolute and incremental rectangular coordinates. Okay? Absolute and rectangular coordinates. Absolute and incremental, excuse me. Well, let's see. We can do these same lines, or we can do lines in a polar coordinate system. So we could go in there and say 0, 0, and then we could say 10 angle. Now angle is the shift key and the comma, which is the same key you're using to space the X and the Y. Well, now what we're telling it is we want to go 10 units in length, so we're essentially giving it the radius, and then the angle we want. And 0 is always at 3 o'clock, 90 is up here at 12 o'clock, 180 is over here at 9 o'clock, and 270 is down at 6 o'clock on your clock. Well, now if I want to go straight up here, I'll say relative to that point, 10 angle 90, and I get that. Then I could say relative to that point, 10 angle 180, and then of course relative to that, 10 angle 270. I get that. Escape gets me out of the command. So those are in this case, they were the first one. The first one was polar coordinates, absolute polar coordinates. Then these other three were all incremental polar coordinates, and the incremental is because of the @ symbol. So the incremental again is relative to that last point. So that's the line command in a nutshell.